Legally Naya. Legally Naya. Hello everybody and welcome back to this video. I am so excited to be recording. It's been a minute since I actually picked up my camera and I'm just excited right now. Like, I really love YouTube and that's something you guys really know about me. I love the camera. I love recording and I love filming for you guys. I'm just really a YouTuber at heart. I always knew I was a YouTuber because when I was 18 years old, I picked up a camera. I started doing YouTube and everyone in my city used to be like, bro, you're a natural. I used to make more entertainment content, but now you see I'm more law focused. But today, I know why you clicked on this video. I know why you're here and we're going to get into it. This video is going to be about what worked for me, what didn't, how I improved, how would I go about the bar with what I know now, how am I getting better, what brings me comfort, mental health, everything about the bar. And I'm going to give you guys different options because we're all different people. So some things are going to be things I've seen other people did and some things are just going to be based off my own personal experience. So let's start with this number one. Starting bar prep early is not just smart, it's advantageous. Bar prep, you really don't know what you're going to be exposed to during bar prep and what you're going to struggle with and what you don't know. And you might feel like, oh, I'm good, I'm straight. But until you really been exposed to all the material, you don't know what you really don't know. A lot of people said that they went over wills or trust or commercial paper, but when they got to the bar, it was so much more knowledge. So you need to give yourself time to wrap your head around concepts. That way you're just not answering questions and trying to pass, but you're internalizing the law and you're really understanding all the moving parts to where you're not fighting the exam, but you're flowing with it. So my biggest piece of advice to anybody watching this is that you need to start bar prep early access like it's not a choice. You need to treat it like it is the real start date and not the start date when you're officially allowed to begin. Because what happens is when you give yourself time to learn, you give yourself time to figure out the holes, and instead of figuring out you don't know things 1 week before test day, 2 weeks before test day, you start to realize you don't know something a month before, 6 weeks before. So you give yourself time to fully understand subjects. But for my people who started on time, and if you're currently in bar prep and you're freaking out right now, I still got tips for you because I will say I learned how to catch myself and I learned what to do. And honestly, it was just 1 week made a big difference. So don't worry, got tips for you too, but I'm just trying to warn everybody from somebody who's a 3L to somebody who's taking the bar right now. Before I get even deeper in this video, I just want to say that I am wearing a Forest Trail Academy shirt. This is my mom's online K-12 business for private education, for homeschooling. I know we are all law students watching this, but if you have children, if you're interested in more homeschool, private education, my mom's school really does meet educational goals and sets such a strong educational foundation. You see me, you see how I am, you see how I think. That all came from my mother. She instilled a lot of values in me. She taught me that education is the most important thing in this world, and that's why I have such a strong understanding to be able to persevere, fight for myself, and teach myself things because of her. So the way she poured into me, that's the same way she pours into her business, into her school. And it is for anyone from elementary school to 12th grade. And if you received your GED or you want to go back to school, then she can still take you on as a student and you can finish and get your high school diploma. So I know that we're all educated if you're watching this video, but if you know somebody who wants a diploma, got their GED, or you're just interested in your kids having private school education that comes from a good school curriculum, Forest Trail Academy is a school for you. And I'm living proof of that. I didn't go to her school. I did go to public school, but I'm living proof of the founder of that school. And I know my mom personally. And I'm not just saying this. If you know me, you know I say the truth. But I'm saying this because I really believe in her vision, and I wouldn't be who I am if she didn't pour all that knowledge into me. And all that knowledge she pours into me, she pours into her school. So like I said, if you like private education, go to foresttrailacademy.com today and enroll your child for good quality online education where you could teach from home and incorporate real world experiences. Now let's get deeper and back into this video. Just how to do that so you could stay in here. If I was somebody who was a 3L, I would immediately go start Adaptibar and then I would go to what's the issue. I would start it like that. And I'm going to explain the video more deeper, why I feel this way and stuff like that. But let's just start there so we can lay the foundation and so we can make this easier. But I really want to talk about my mental health first and during bar prep. Bar prep has been really, really hard on me. In that first series that you guys see me do, I was in a good mental space, but honestly, immediately after my property video, I started having bad mental health during bar prep. I feel like I got depressed. I feel like I got very sad. I feel like I got a lot of anxiety. I feel like I didn't feel confident in myself. I feel like I didn't trust myself anymore. I didn't feel confident in my abilities. But I really feel like that came from putting the program number 1 and reviewing second. They really do tell you to review and do your program. So this was me not doing both 100%. But if you're going to start on time, you need to figure out a way to do your program and still make sure you're reviewing every day. And if you want to make sure you can balance just doing your program, go ahead and do that review and start early, now as a 3L or now as somebody entering the bar and you don't want to be overwhelmed when you start like the rest of us. But I will say, everyone's going to have their bad moments during bar prep. You might even cry. I've cried. Just being so for real, I've cried. And a lot of people think I'm confident, I'm this, I'm that, and I am. But that doesn't mean the bar didn't get to me. That doesn't mean I didn't have weak areas. That didn't mean I didn't write a good essay one day. That doesn't mean anything. So really, really just know it's gonna be a mental struggle, but the biggest thing I learned is push through every single day. And that day where you wanna quit and give up, push through it, especially when you're on material you're uncomfortable with. That is really where the growing pains begin. And the next day I'll wake up and I'm like, wait, now I know that subject, or now I'm better at that subject. I'm at least improving. So don't give up on yourself just because you don't understand one subject, 2 subjects. Dive deep. You need to face that subject. There's no more running. It's time to learn. I will say that Adaptibar has been one of the most helpful things for me through this process. Barbary and Theme as your program is just going to expose you to the law and teach you everything. Adaptibar with Professor Jonathan Grossman, he's teaching you heavy tested things and how to approach MBE questions. Because a lot of people can know the law, but if you don't know how to incorporate it with the question and recognize it, that's where the issue becomes. And even for MBE, it's important to know the law first, and then you have to make sure you're applying. But by the time people realize they don't know the law, it's honestly close to test day. So if you realize you're not doing good at MBE, it's lack of law, and you need to go back and remember the law. And even me, I used to be like, oh, I'm good at contracts. Then I went back and I watched Adaptibar videos again, and I'm like, I know damages. But guess what? Did I know all 20 versions? No. And with the bar, it's really about knowing every little rule that you know is heavily tested, not just 1 or 2 rules from a subject, but every rule in that subject. And a lot of people really don't know the rules like they think they do because the bar is testing you on elements for MBE, not overall understanding. So you could be like, oh yeah, I know what false imprisonment is. That's that thing where, you know, somebody's confined and, you know, they can't get out and they were falsely imprisoned. Oh, okay, well, did you know false imprisonment has to be the intent for a person to confine or restrain or bound a person to that area? Confinement occurred and that plaintiff was aware that confinement happened or they were injured by confinement. Do you know each element? Because it might test you on one rule or one word in that element. So if you missed any of those words, you have now missed a question. The MBE is really about knowing the law and knowing how to apply it and knowing every aspect of that law. So you must know black letter law cold. And I'm gonna show you guys something. And this is not even me done. This is every subject. People be like, oh, I know contracts. Okay, can you tell me if you know every single rule in this subject? If not, lock in. This is no longer about knowing 5 rules. This is about knowing 30 rules for one subtopic. This is about knowing 20 rules in one subtopic. Because it'll be one subject and it'll have 4 or 5 subtopics that'll be tested, and each subtopic will have 20 rules. So do you know each rule thoroughly? And that's why I had to go back and I had to go write out flashcards and I had to know the law cold, because if not, I honestly was in a bad predicament with MBE. And every day I felt like I was fighting the questions. Every day I felt like I didn't know the law. And every day I literally felt like every question was giving me a heart attack. And then I talked to Professor Grossman and he made me realize you need to go back for the law. So I went back for the law and now I feel confident again. Now I understand, even those subjects where I'm like, oh, I'm good at contracts. This is what happens during the bar. Whatever you're good in, you'll start to focus on what you're bad in and you'll forget. The biggest thing you have to do is review each subject every single day. You have to equally make sure you're studying everything, or your highest subject can become your lowest. The bar isn't just about knowing in that moment, it's about maintaining until test day, mixed with 2 other subjects of Florida essay, plus Florida multiple choice. So you must maintain the law in your head. It's easy to know it one day when you freshly learned it. Okay, do you know it 8 weeks later? Everything cold. And that's what this test is about. Endurance, mental strength, and retaining the law, which is why they say that active recall is important. But I found that flashcards help me with active recall. Some people do voice recordings, as well as getting together with some friends who are taking the bar seriously just like you and talking about torts one day, having review sessions with each other. Conversations, you can really engrave it in your head, but you generally need people who are just as serious, and you know that when you're coming to study, they're going to study, not talk. This is bar prep. This is no longer law school. It's the bar, and you got to treat it as such. Every minute, every day counts. Make sure you're being intentional during the bar to where every day is producing you closer to your goal. If you're confused on any subject, I highly recommend that you go watch Adaptibar videos. Now, some people are like, how am I supposed to watch Adaptibar videos with my schedule? Unfortunately, y'all, I don't know, because I started early, so I'm able to use this time wisely more now. But you might have to stay up one night and go watch Adaptibar. Or you start early and you don't have to go through the balancing test of what to do because you already came and started concrete, and now you already have your notes right now. You already got your flashcards, you already got your outlines. You are just practicing, and you want to be in that position. You want to treat the bar more like practice than like learning. But a lot of law students were learning. Yeah, unfortunately. But it's possible and it's doable. You just need to go back for the law. And then once you think about it, it's only torts, contracts, property, civ pro, crim law, evidence, and I forgot a subject. But y'all get the drift. And you will start to realize, if you know MBE code like that, you will know Florida essay. Because guess what? Property for MBE is property for that essay. There might be a little bit of Florida distinctions, but an easement, still an easement. A covenant, still a covenant. Offer and acceptance is still offer and acceptance. Negligence is still duty, breach, causation, damages. It's literally the same test, adding a few Florida distinctions. So what I did, at first I realized I was going about it all wrong. I was mainly focusing on remembering Florida essay statements cold. And I did learn overall what's tested, Florida essays, what's the issue, and I learned my structure. But MBE is the foundation of this exam. If you're struggling with MBE, you're struggling with the foundation. And if you just choose to learn all those laws cold, you will help yourself not only with MBE, but Florida essays. And the only difference between MBE and Florida essays is, yes, on torts, you're gonna have a couple more Florida distinctions that you'll have to learn. But you already know the solid law from MBE. What you are gonna have to learn is Florida con law, family law, which is mainly testing you on alimony, prenups, postnups, custody, divorce, time sharing, non-marital, marital assets. Very structured, obvious rule statements. Mainly analysis with family. Florida con law, yeah, you're gonna have to learn that one cold. But outside of that, and PR. But we all took PR for the MPRE. Outside of that, it's MBE. Okay? So if you know MBE code definition-wise, you now know your Florida essays code definition-wise, and you're not thinking, how can I learn definitions for a Florida essay? If you focused on MBE and you learned all those definitions at once, you're helping yourself with both. And honestly, this has been the turning point for my learning. When I wrote out those flashcards, I realized, oh my gosh, now that, because MBE can test you on any 20 damages for contracts, I now know I can get any contracts essay and write 20 different damages word for word and give my bar examiner person more definitions than the next person. One thing they tell you during FBAP and Grossman says, the more definitions you know, add it to your arsenal. That's one more definition for the next day. And that's what I've been on. I went back and learned the definitions. I was struggling with MBE every day. Honestly, I just started understanding 3 days ago. And it's been a turning point for my confidence. It's been a turning point for the exam. I finally can understand questions. So if you're struggling with MBE, I want to tell you right now that you don't know enough law. And if you want to know ways to get the law in your head, me personally, I did flashcards. If flashcards aren't for you, go get this. That's right, a whiteboard. You need to be actively recalling the law. And you can even see, I wrote on this whiteboard. When I was going over a video, I just wanted to make sure in that moment I understood general warranty deed because I had 6 covenants. And I'm like, okay, let me keep writing it out right now, erasing, writing it out. I'm like, okay, there's 3 present, 3 future. And the more you really choose to learn the law cold, for me, flashcards is my best way. But I don't mind this sometimes, especially if I'm like tripping out and I'm like, bro, I don't remember what is strict liability. I'll literally take out this whiteboard and I'll be like, strict liability. Okay, what is it? Can I remember right now to write it down? And guess what? I can even tell you guys right now. Strict liability is wild animals or abnormally dangerous activity. And strict liability for wild animals, you are strictly liable. And for abnormally dangerous activity, that is dynamite, excavation, explosions, things like that. And you are strictly liable unless there's defenses, which is assumption of the risk. Things like that you will learn. And yeah, you just have to be very intentional with knowing the law cold. And I realize that even when you do questions. Now, some subjects, the fact patterns are a little bit more tricky. But for a lot of these subjects, it really is knowing the definition, especially for subjects like contracts and property. Contracts, yes, they give you all them hard, long fact patterns for contracts, property, and con law. But if you know those definitions, you can get to the answer. Those are definition heavy subjects because it's only so many ways you can form a contract. There's only so many defenses you can have. There's only certain types of damages you can have. So if you know those 20 damages, you know all the ways a contract could be revoked, you know all the ways that there could be a contract without consideration, what can they really test you? And something I realized in the Adaptibar videos is that what Grossman told us was they can only change the facts, they can't change the law. So your law is your base, but you want to make sure you're practicing enough to where you're exposed to the law. Next question. How do you go about retaining a subject every day? All right, bet. Every day you need to write out Monday through Sunday what subjects you're going to go over and how in depth do you need to go. So me, I'm good at crim law. At crim prep. And not even with double jeopardy and Sixth Amendment right to counsel, it's the warrant exceptions for me and them facts. So guess what I need to do? On my crim pro day, I need to go target those warrant exceptions so that I can get them wrong in my house, but I won't be getting them wrong on exam day. So depending on how deep in a subject you need to go is your personal call, or you can have a blanket. Okay, every day I'm gonna do a subject and I'm gonna go deep for every subject and then I'm gonna do a mixed set. So what my friend told me what she did was she would do crim law, crim pro. She would do all her bad subtopics on your program and go deep into those subtopics and test herself. And then she would do it for her incorrect answers. Then she would go do an overall thing of all the subjects within that topic. Incorrect answers or correct, whatever you want to do. Incorrect answers will help you learn what you're getting wrong though. Then she would go after all that and do a general mix set of all the subjects. So if you want to be very intentional in your day and go deep, go into your subtopics, then do all the topics overall for that subject, then do a mix set so you make sure you know you're actually keeping every law alive. And yeah, or reviewing every day, and then you do a mix set in the end. But if you want to make sure you're being more intentional, you can always pick up more work. That's your choice. Just telling you guys options, but you need to know the law cold. And if you're taking MPE now and you're a 3L, keep practicing active recall for knowing the law, because when you get to the bar, it's going to be about how long can you hold that information. You're going to have to keep holding it until exam day. But what I will say is knowing MPE cold will help you with your Florida essays. Yes, you're going to have to learn the distinctions. Maybe go watch What's the Issue to learn some of those distinctions. Or also, ding, 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 something Leo reminded me of. Our school, Nova, Southeastern University, gave us this book. This book says topics in Florida practice. It goes over every Florida subject and specific Florida laws that you might not even get from What's the Issue, which What's the Issue does give you enough Florida law, but more. Because one thing I realized is an advert act you can get from MBE, but you'll read this book and it'll tell you that Florida doesn't consider an advert act or substantial step. So yes, you can get by knowing enough law for MBE, but this, What's the Issue plus your Florida topics book will give you more Florida law if you're looking for it. And in your course companion, those underlying topics have a lot of Florida law. But if you want something more simple, heavily tested, what you need to know for Florida, What's the Issue, topics in Florida practice will get you there. There's always more law to learn. Next, you need to be writing an essay every single day. I don't care if you're the best essay writer. Because even me at first, I was telling my professor like, oh, I'm good at essays. Like, yeah, I don't really need to write an essay like that. I need to focus on multiple choice. Nah, I can tell you guys straight up that I am a good essay writer. I'm not gonna lie. I am a good essay writer, and I have, for the most part, been hitting my issues, but I will see little things in those facts that I forgot to mention, or maybe structure to an essay, or maybe noticing how the best answer people are all structuring their essays. You will start to pick up on little things. And you might know, for me, what I realized with crim, I did an essay on murder, basically. And I talked about intent to kill, intent to cause serious bodily harm, but a person died, felony, murder, depraved heart. You know what was in that essay that I read that I forgot to have because I haven't took crim law in so long? Proximate and actual clause about murder. I'm like, what? Mind you, in the program, it didn't even really mention that. But when I read that essay, that person remembered that, and they might have been a good crim law person. So those essays will teach you details that you could be including in your essay for more points that maybe your program isn't teaching you, or that person was just good at that subject and they remembered. Now I will say, perfect answers for the Florida bar exam, best answers by a student, still can get the law wrong, but they're the best answer, and you can realize if you can write like them, you are fine. So yeah, that will help your confidence. And write it under time conditions. I write every essay once a day in an hour to make sure I know how to write in an hour and to make sure I know how to get them fingers going. One thing I will also say is that you need to go to your FBAC program at least for stimulated exam days and for learning the law. I'm sorry, y'all. You will leave there knowing more from Grossman when you leave. Or you will leave there knowing like, oh snap, I know how to write an essay 1 hour alone in my house, but when I was around 20 other people, I froze. When I heard them typing and I know I take 5 minutes to process, I didn't know what to do. I'm one of those people who get to typing. So if you get nervous by that, just know So it's good to be at these stimulations so you can see how you react and know what you need to do better on. I realized for multiple choice, I did answer every question when we did our stimulated exam, but I was cutting it very close to time. So that would taught me that I need to be reading questions a little faster. I need to be going through it a little more. But that's because when I did my first stimulated exam, I was fighting questions still because I did not have a good foundation on the law. And every question felt like a struggle even before that exam. But now it's like when you get to know the black letter law, you're not struggling on what is this question asking me? You're like, oh, they're asking me about specific performance. What's that rule? Okay, which answer is talking about specific performance? You're not trying to think, what is specific performance in the definition? Now you're looking for the answer choice that you know is about it in that definition. So yeah, flashcards for me have helped. If you take MBE serious, it will translate into Florida essay. And for Florida multiple choice, like I always say, Florida Civ Pro, Florida Crim Pro is tested. Know that. Florida evidence, they say, is always likely to be tested, but not guaranteed, like Florida Civ and Crim. So do what you know is guaranteed and learn what you can for everything else. I at least would read an outline every day on Florida Civ Pro, Florida Crim Pro, or read a business entity outline. Just keep familiarizing yourself with it if you know you're prioritizing other things, or go on with this and watch a video on a subject. I don't know what to tell y'all. Make sure you're trying to balance everything out. But just know that MBE and FBE, if you learn those definitions cold, start to become the same exam, and then you could just go ahead and worry about Florida con law, knowing your PR rule statements, family, and Florida multiple choice. Another thing I want to say is, like I said, use Adaptibar if you're struggling. Push through your tough days because it might not click in that moment, but it'll click the next day. Something that my friend told me she recommends is that when you do your subject of the day for MBE, write an essay on that same subject so you can be reinforcing the law. And essays will show you fact patterns of your multiple choice questions, and it will make you realize, oh, so under the UCC, I wasn't getting that in multiple choice. But now I see in this essay, now I know how to explain it. Now I know that when it's asking me like that in multiple choice, this is the answer. So use MBE and Florida hand in hand. Something else I want to say is you don't suck at a subject, you don't have enough law in a subject. I used to keep telling myself I suck at evidence. I suck at Civ Pro. Well, guess what? I don't tell myself I suck anymore. I tell myself I don't know enough law in Civ Pro. I don't know enough law in evidence. And maybe if I go learn some laws, it won't suck so much no more. And I've been just treating every subject like an even playing field and giving it equal attention, and that has been helping me. Now, yes, like Professor Grossman will tell you, you will get a funky question that will be like, huh? But guess what? Take a mental note of that and keep pushing. But as long as you know the black letter law, every little new exception that might be rarely tested, it's gonna throw you off, and you can take a mental picture of that, a screenshot, and instead of worrying about what's the basic rules of an offer acceptance and trying to write down everything of all those basic subjects of law, you can now just force yourself to memorize that one new exception and recognize it in question form. Practice writing an essay every day. Learn your MBE laws cold. Make sure you know that Florida con law. And those 3 Florida subjects that are heavily more Florida. And do try to expose yourself to Florida distinctions for your MBE subjects. But just know, if you know MBE cold, you can have your foundation. And even Professor Grossman, he has an Adaptibar YouTube channel. When I was very overwhelmed, I would go on Adaptibar on his YouTube, and literally he goes through question problems with you sometimes. He tells you where you should be as a February taker, where you should be moving towards as a July taker. He is your support. So go watch him when you're overwhelmed. They say Bar Exam Masters is great for Florida multiple choice, or go through your program 3 times for questions and you will understand. So there's that. Outlines that I've used to get my flashcards. Everybody wants to know, oh my gosh, where did you get your law? Because I will say, Some things your law student outlines won't have a bar, mainly heavy tested courses because you don't know. JD advising outlines kept it sweet to the point. I tell myself, if you know everything on here front to back, that's enough. And then I also mix in laws from Adaptibar, and sometimes I like a definition more from here. Sometimes I like a definition more for Adaptibar. What I do is subjects that I find to be too complex for me and I have a hard time struggling with, I give myself simpler definitions. I don't go in there with all that legalese. I give myself legalese in them subjects I'm confident in. All right, contracts, yeah. I'm gonna hit you with them legal definitions. I don't know, let's just say an example, crim pro. If I'm having a hard time remembering the exceptions, I'm not gonna go write the hard definition. I'm gonna go write down the best way for me to understand in an example. Everything that I struggle with in a subtopic, I give myself examples in my flashcards. So your flashcards don't have to be 100 flashcards. It could be, I'm good at con law. I know judicial review, federalism, supremacy clause. Oh, I suck at speech. So I need to go in there and write all the different speech definitions and examples to remember. Drill in what you don't know. You don't have to work too hard on what you do know, but have those definitions. Because what I will say for myself is I used to have what I thought was easy, like contracts, and then started forgetting basic definitions, getting too deep in the other subjects. So yeah, at first, people write down what they don't remember, but I realized like the bar is too passive. And if you just keep doing outlines, sometimes people forget. My number one thing I hear from so much people is, bro, like I'll read the outline and I'll know it, but then they'll kind of forget the law deeply. And that's why I had to personally resort to flashcards. But maybe if you're picking up an outline every day and you're reviewing it cold and you're actively recalling it, you will remember. But flashcards help me actively recall, even if I don't have another person to recall with. Me and Paula, we walked around the pond the other day and she taught me the subjects I was weak in. I taught her the subjects I was strong in. And that conversation has helped drill it in more. But even after that, guess what? I'm going back to my flashcards and I'm drilling it in more. So just find multiple ways to drill it in your head. So I used Adaptibar and JD advising outline for my flashcard notes to remember. And I used What's the Issue to give myself a template for the essays and to know some Florida distinctions before starting bar prep. But now I know core of the laws. I'm not even doing my essay rule statements anymore. I'd even go back and learn property from What's the Issue because I now know it from MBE. The only thing I'm taking from my What's the Issue essay outline structure is the Florida distinctions, because an easement is still an easement. Adverse possession is still adverse possession. What's going to change from MBE in Florida is that in Florida it's 20 years and on the MBE it can tell you it's 7. So it's the nuance. It's not the core that's changing. Remember that. And if you could have one friend, 2 friends who are dedicated in this process with you, go strong together. Review weekly together. Maybe have a phone call. Maybe meet at school. Maybe you guys sit there and just don't depend on your FBAT program to do stimulated exams. You guys go there and be like, we're going to do 100 questions of Adaptibar next to each other, stimulated conditions. Timer on, phone goes off, everybody stop. One girl also told me that when she goes to FBAP, we do get to keep our essay hypo and our multiple choice questions. One girl told me who passed MBE that she kept redoing those packets until she got it right. Every question. Keep drilling the law. Because I will say it was a different experience reading in person than doing it on the screen. At first I used to struggle with the screen, and now I feel like I'm struggling with reading it on paper because I adapted to the screen. So now I know I need to do the screen and paper because it is a different vibe, and that's why you need to be at those stimulated exams. If you're a retaker, show up to those stimulated exams. It's giving you testing conditions. Please do not be afraid to show up because you need to retake it. Do you know what that means? That means you need to be in there under time conditions with the support system of people who are trying to learn it too. You won't fear essays if you know the rules codes. Practice writing an essay every day. Review MBE subjects daily. Go through a Florida outline for multiple choice. Bar exam masters, you could test yourself at. But me personally, when I realized I was getting ahead of my program, but I was still stuck in the MBE, I had to go back for MBE. And ever since I went back, I have no regrets because learning the law code has now helped me with my Florida essays, and it has now helped me with MBE. And I remember commerce clause, I put a more general, loose, liberal definition. I know so many definitions so well. I'm like, let me strengthen that commerce clause because I know it's gonna be tested on con law. So let me strengthen that because I can give a great definition now because I learned the basics. So you can even get better in your definitions when you go back to learn the law code, because when you write it, you can give a legalese definition because you know the law. My other thing is I wanna say lean on Grossman if you're struggling. He is your professor. If you go to Nova, call that man. Sorry, Professor Grossman, but call that man. And also something I want to say is lean on your bar coaches as well. Bar coaches are there to give you structure. Your FBAT program is there to give you law learning and stimulated exams. So when I was struggling with con law, let's say, your bar professor will be like, okay, you're scoring this. You need to do better on con law. But they might not give you solutions on how to be better. That is when you need to go talk to a con law professor at your school and you need to tell them what you don't understand. Your professors might be able to help you, or you might be able to go watch an Adaptibar video, or you can go call Grossman. But the learning is all on you, or you can call your friends to review. But it's all about how serious your friends are taking it as well. Because me personally, I learned a lot from my friends and having conversation, but if they're not trying to be as serious as me, I'm gonna study alone. And no, group studying is for you. Group studying, I realize I can't study with a group of people, but I can review with a group of people. There's a difference. I want to say that anxiety is inevitable, but knowing the law code has started to reduce my anxiety. My issue now is like, dang, I'm learning it. I learned it getting so close to testing, but I'm glad I'm learning it and I learned majority now. But if I would have done this in the beginning, it would have been so much easier. Or if I would have started earlier and did Adaptibar, and I told you, use your JD advising outlines, get those flashcards ready, start actively recalling from there, you will be fine. You will know the law code enough. And you can use what's the issue to get more law. So the best piece of advice would be to be taking Adaptibar and what's the issue before bar prep. But if you're gonna do it during, then I mean, it's nothing you can't overcome because I'm doing it right now. I'm doing both. Did I put myself in an ideal position to be in? No. But I'm telling you guys my mistakes. And if you're taking February 2 like me, you need to go back for MBE cold letter, black letter law. If you're struggling with MBE and you need to learn those laws cold, and it'll help you with your essay as well. I'll finish. I'll stop. That's what Professor Grossman says. I will say that my bar prep coach has helped me a lot with structure in the beginning, especially like learning how to sit down, how to prepare, how to set up my day. But the self-learning, like I said, is really on you. Your bar prep coaches are expecting you to know Florida distinctions when you're entering your program. They expect you to know MBE when you're entering the program. And a lot of us do feel like we know this enough, but no, we need to know definitions. Do you know the difference between liquidated damages, expectation damages, consequential damages, lost profits? Do you know the difference between non-conforming goods? Do you know the firm merchant offer rule? Do you know that under UCC you do not have to mirror image rule the acceptance? But you could change terms and it'll still be an acceptance unless it materially changes the terms and limits acceptance or the other merchant rejects. You need to know these laws and these definitions cold. And I was so worried about going back for the law because I'm like, I'm out of time, I don't have time. Naya, guys, it's 7 subjects. You can go back. Now is the time. If your MBE score is struggling, hanging on by a thread, now is the time to go back for the law. The law is the foundation, and you won't feel like you're being tested on every single subject, and every question is different if you go back for the law. But you must do it now. Don't do it close to test day. Do it now. Mentally, it is hard. It will get hard, but push through, call people, talk to your family when you need help, talk to your partner, cut off toxic people, don't have toxic relationships during this time, toxic friendships, put yourself first. Those mental hard days, I'm not even gonna lie, y'all, they were hard for me too. But I'm so glad I'm on the other side of every day because I always tell myself like, oh my gosh, MBE questions are finally starting to click. But I was worried. I really was worried. I'm not gonna lie, I was worried. 4 days ago, 5 days ago, I was worried. Now, even though if I don't get a lot of questions right, it's because I know that I haven't been exposed to enough questions, but I've learned the foundation. But even like I said, a lot of these subjects, contracts, con law, property is based on the definitions. They just give you long hypos. Torts, it's based on the fact pattern and the situation. For example, a battery, we all know is intent or substantial certainty to cause harmful or offensive touching. All right. If it is during a basketball game and a father says, kill the ump to his son, and the son hits the freaking umpire, it is not a battery because it wasn't made to be taken literally because of the fact that it's a sports game and that is common language in the game. I didn't know nothing about baseball, but I had to learn from the facts. That's why you need to do the facts and you need to test yourself. And after me getting through these laws cold, I need to expose myself to as many questions as I can. Maybe if I was somebody who been knew the law and I was doing fact patterns, I would just do a mix set a day. But because I just finally freaking learned the law again for real, I need to be that person who's going back and getting deep with my subtopics. So it really just depends on where you're at personally. But these are a lot of things that I learned with the bar. Oh, outlines that I like for Florida multiple choice. I believe it's called the Marsha outline. I gotta go look. They're called Marsha outlines and I love them because it gives you like all the rules of law in the long explanation version, and then in the end it'll give you like condensed what you should know. There is an overall Florida multiple choice outline that a lot of people send out. If you know, you know. Sorry, if you don't know, then it's literally in all Florida law schools at this point. Like people from FIU, UF all have that same outline. I will say that outline didn't really help me because it was too like simple. It was too more like county court, plaintiff can sue. Plaintiff could do this. Like it was more like straight to the point. I'm somebody who needs words. I need somebody who needs to understand explanations. So Marshall's helping me. But I'm thankful for that outline because if I need to know on the go, that's cool too. These are a lot of things I learned during bar prep. I will say I'm still fighting against the clock just like y'all. I get nervous posting these videos because I'm like, bro, I'm fighting the clock too. But I'm glad that I know what I know now. And at first I was having a lot of anxiety until I went back for the black letter law, and then all the multiple choice started to make sense. And it's because, yeah, it's true. When you do MBE, you understand all the subjects in that moment. Evidence, something I don't feel the best in, I was having above average passing. But if I went and did evidence right now, 6 weeks later, I would go back to a low score. So it's about keeping those laws in your head and making sure you're honest with yourself, because your bar prep coach might be like, oh, no, you're getting a 65%, you're getting a 70%. 65 is what you want to aim for in every course for passing multiple choice MBE. But you deep down know you are not the best at that, and it's only because you did it right then and there. You need to be honest with yourself and go back for that subject. It's all about you being honest with yourself. Cut out those distractions, lock in, and pass this test. Go back for that black letter law if you're afraid, because it will help you with Florida essays and MBE. And if you're a retaker, show up to the stimulated exams, and I will give you the biggest hug. And if you're at your school and you're embarrassed, go to your school, please, because you know what's better? Getting under those time conditions and feeling like you're gonna pass. And being vulnerable through this process. I literally text one person the most now, Paula. Because Paula and me, we're okay with being vulnerable with each other and vulnerable, period. And I love that, because a lot of people don't really tell you what they're doing, or they're like, don't admit that they're stressed. And me and her, I'm not to put you out there, Paula, I'm sorry. But I'd be like, I'm stressing. She'd be like, me too. I'm like, girl, we together. And the more honest, the more safe you feel. And it started bringing me comfort. And I feel like that's also why I feel better in bar prep now, because I have her who's just like me mentally when it comes to feeling emotions. And then we are pushing each other now, and we're not making excuses, and we're getting up and we're doing our work and we're persevering. So yeah, mental bad days. There's days I wanted to quit, especially on the subjects I was rough at first, like Civ Pro. But getting through those days, I forced myself to learn every flashcard. And I'm probably gonna need more refreshers on those flashcards. But I feel so much more confident when I do those questions. And now I'm like, wait, it's not that I suck at Civ Pro. I didn't know enough law in Civ Pro. And that's why I didn't like it. But the bar is like a fine-tooth comb. You need to go through all those subjects. Even if you're strong in contracts, you might know offer and acceptance of formation, but do you know the difference between duress and undue influence? Do you know the difference between liquidated damages and consequential damages? You need to know the difference. And that's where black letter law will help you with practice and reading comprehension. And I do want to say that NOVA does have a good FBAT program. What is lacking is the expectation of students knowing everything by the time we get to the bar program. And students not taking it seriously when even Grossman's like, learn it now, learn it now, learn it now. So they kind of need to stop acting like, okay, you don't know this. They need to start getting in the field with you and be like, all right, you don't know this. We need to create solutions instead of being like, just keep going. That's where the disconnect is. They need to realize 99.9% of them students coming to you did not refresh on the law when your professors told you to. And something else they told you to do while you're a 2L, 1L is to go back and review your exams when you get multiple choice, and go back and review your essays. Do it. Get stronger. Your essays are on the Florida Bar Exam website. I said this so many times. I'm kind of exhausted, y'all, because I'm still studying, got more to go, but I just wanted to make this video to help people in the fire of bar prep, because I know people freaking out, and I want to help you, because I was freaking out until like 4 days ago. So yeah. And me, I'm still fighting against time with learning everything and just having that anxiety, like, oh, I have a good foundation of what to do now, but did I do it too late? You know, we all got our thoughts. But what I tell myself is, as long as I learn enough more every day, cool, I'm fine with that. And I'm doing my multiple choice, and I'm learning that law foundation, and I'm going to review a subject today, and I'm going to tell you guys exactly that I'm going to do what I just said I'm going to do. Yeah. This is the bar. We need to lock in. And you, everyone, right now in this very moment, is savable. So go save yourselves. Thank you very much. And go to Forest Trail Academy, or refer a friend to Forest Trail Academy if you know somebody interested in private education for, again, an online K-12 asynchronous school, self-learning, self-teaching. Of course, there's teachers who respond to you within, I think my mom says 24 or 48 hours. Don't hold me to that, one of that, but it won't be a week. They're very diligent, and it's a curriculum. So go to Forest Trail Academy. Legally Naya. Legally Naya. Good luck, everybody. Also, one thing an attorney told me that helped him for MBE is this book, but it's called Strategies and Tactics for the MBE. If you're struggling that bad, go pick it up. See you guys soon.